Imagine a world, vast and mysterious, stretching from the sunny shores of Greece to the mystical lands of India. Now, imagine one man, not just seeing it, but conquering it all before his 33rd birthday. This isn't a fantasy epic. This is the real-life story of Alexander the Great, the boy who became a legend. So, who was this guy? Let's rewind the clock to 356 BC in Pella, the capital of Macedon, a kingdom in northern Greece. A baby boy is born, and they name him Alexander. But this wasn't just any baby. His dad was King Philip II, a brilliant and ruthless military commander who was busy turning Macedon into a superpower. His mom was Olympias, a fiery and ambitious princess from a neighboring kingdom. With parents like that, you know this kid was destined for something big. Growing up, Alexander wasn't just playing with wooden swords. He was getting the best education money could buy. And who was his tutor? None other than Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers of all time. For 3 years, Aristotle taught Alexander everything: politics, philosophy, medicine, and a deep love for Greek culture, especially the epic tales of Homer's Iliad. Alexander carried a copy with him his whole life, inspired by the hero Achilles. He didn't just want to be a hero, he wanted to be the greatest hero the world had ever seen. He wasn't just a bookworm, though. Alexander was a natural on the battlefield. The most famous story from his youth involves a horse. Not just any horse, but Bucephalus, a wild, untamable stallion that no one could ride. While grown men failed, a teenage Alexander noticed something they didn't: the horse was afraid of its own shadow. So, he calmly turned Bucephalus towards the sun, mounted him, and rode him into submission. His father, Philip, was so proud he reportedly said, "My son, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedon is too small for you." Talk about a confidence boost. Everything changed in 336 BC. King Philip was assassinated, and suddenly, at just 20 years old, Alexander was king. Many thought the young, inexperienced ruler would fail. Neighboring Greek city-states like Thebes rebelled, thinking this was their chance to break free. They were wrong. Alexander moved with lightning speed, marched his army south, and completely destroyed the city of Thebes as a brutal warning. The message was clear: don't mess with the new king. With Greece secured, Alexander turned his eyes to the east, to his father's ultimate, unfinished project: conquering the mighty Persian Empire. This was the superpower of the day, an empire stretching across 3 continents, ruled by King Darius III. It was David versus Goliath, but Alexander had a secret weapon: the Macedonian army. It was a professional, battle-hardened force, perfected by his father. They had the sarissa, a super-long spear that created an impenetrable wall of pointy death, and the companion cavalry, an elite unit of heavy horsemen led by Alexander himself. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia with about 40,000 soldiers. The Persians, with their massive, diverse army, met him at the Granicus River. The Persian plan was simple: kill Alexander. They placed their best cavalry right where they expected him to be, but Alexander was unpredictable. He led a daring charge right across the river, straight into the heart of the enemy. It was chaotic, it was bloody, and Alexander was almost killed, but in the end, the Macedonians won a stunning victory. Asia Minor was now open to him. City after city fell. Some welcomed him as a liberator from Persian rule, others resisted. One famous example is the Siege of Tyre, a city on an island fortress that seemed impossible to capture. What did Alexander do? He ordered his men to build a giant causeway, a land bridge, all the way to the island. It took 7 months of brutal work under constant enemy fire, but he did it. He then rolled his siege towers across and conquered the city. This showed the world that nothing, not even the sea itself, could stop him. Next up, Egypt. The Egyptians were sick of their Persian rulers, so they welcomed Alexander with open arms. They even declared him a pharaoh and a son of the god Amun. While there, he founded a city that would become one of the most important in the ancient world, a center for learning and culture for centuries to come. He named it, of course, Alexandria. A bit of an ego, maybe, but he earned it. But the real showdown was still to come. King Darius had gathered another, even larger army to stop Alexander once and for all. They met at a place called Gaugamela in modern-day Iraq. The Persian army was enormous, possibly numbering over 200,000 men with scythe chariots designed to shred the Macedonian infantry. Alexander's army was outnumbered at least 4-1. Any normal general would have been terrified. But Alexander wasn't normal. He used a brilliant, unorthodox strategy. He angled his right flank, tempting the Persian cavalry to charge and create a gap in their own line. It was a huge gamble. As the battle raged and dust filled the air, Alexander saw his moment. The gap opened. He led his companion cavalry in a thunderous, wedge-shaped charge straight at Darius himself. The Persian king, seeing this force of nature hurtling towards him, panicked and fled the battlefield. When the Persian soldiers saw their king abandon them, their morale shattered. The massive army collapsed. Alexander had won. He was now the undisputed king of Asia. He marched into the grand cities of Babylon and Susa, capturing the empire's immense treasury. He then went to Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia, and in a controversial act, burned the grand palace to the ground. Some say it was revenge for Persia's invasion of Greece 150 years earlier. Others say it was a drunken accident. Whatever the reason, it symbolized the end of the Persian Empire and the dawn of a new, Hellenistic age. But for Alexander, it wasn't enough. His ambition was limitless. He kept pushing east, deeper into unknown territory. His men, who had been marching and fighting for years, were getting tired. They were thousands of miles from home, but Alexander's curiosity and drive were insatiable. He wanted to reach the ends of the world and the great outer sea. He fought his way through what is now Afghanistan and Pakistan, facing fierce resistance from local warlords in treacherous mountain terrain. This was a different kind of war, a brutal guerrilla conflict. It was here he married Roxana, the daughter of a local chieftain, in a strategic move to pacify the region and blend the cultures of his new empire. Finally, he reached India. At the Hydaspes River, he faced his most challenging opponent yet, King Paris and his army of war elephants. The Macedonians had never seen elephants used in battle before, and they were terrifying. The battle was Alexander's bloodiest and hardest-fought victory. He was so impressed by Porus's bravery that after defeating him, Alexander let him keep his kingdom and even gave him more territory, making him an ally. But this was the breaking point for his army. After 8 years of constant campaigning, his soldiers had had enough. They were exhausted, homesick, and terrified of facing even larger Indian armies they'd heard rumors about. At the Hyphasis River, they finally put their foot down. For the first time, his men mutinied. They refused to go any further. A furious and disappointed Alexander sulked in his tent for 3 days, but eventually, he had to give in. The journey to the end of the world was over. They were turning back. The return journey was a disaster. Alexander split his forces, sending part of the army home by sea, while he led the rest through the brutal Gedrosian desert, an unexplored and unforgiving wasteland. Thousands of his soldiers and their families who followed the army died from heat and thirst. It was a horrific ordeal that tarnished his reputation as a caring commander. When he finally returned to Babylon, Alexander began the massive task of organizing his new, multicultural empire. He encouraged his soldiers to marry Persian women, and he himself took another Persian wife. His vision was to fuse Greek and Persian cultures into a single, unified civilization. He planned new cities, new explorations, and new campaigns, but he would never see them happen. In 323 BC, after a long bout of feasting and drinking in Babylon, Alexander fell gravely ill with a fever. For 10 days, the strongest man in the world grew weaker and weaker. His soldiers, who loved him despite everything, filed past his bed to see him one last time. When his generals asked him who his vast empire should go to, he supposedly whispered, "To the strongest." On June 11, 323 BC, Alexander the Great died. He was only 32 years old. His death threw the world into chaos. His generals, the Diadochi, immediately began fighting over his empire, which quickly fractured into several new kingdoms. The unity he had forged was shattered. So, what is his legacy? Was he a brilliant hero, a visionary who spread Greek culture and connected the East and West? Or was he a ruthless tyrant, a conqueror whose ambition cost millions of lives? The truth is, he was both. His conquests led to the Hellenistic period, a fascinating era where Greek language, art, and ideas blended with local traditions all the way from Egypt to India. He founded over 20 cities, many of which became centers of trade and learning. But his path to glory was paved with violence and destruction. In just over a decade, Alexander the Great redrew the map of the ancient world. His life was short, but his impact was immeasurable, shaping the course of history for centuries. He remains one of the most fascinating and complex figures of all time, the boy from Macedon who set out to conquer the world and nearly did. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic stories from history.